Okay, so here's the deal. If you go through chord changes and you do stuff like learn like all the outlining tones, like thirds and sevenths, for instance, we know that like pretty much almost any other note other than the root. I mean, obviously root is, you have to have the root, but if the third and the seventh is correct, you can pretty much murder everything else.
Yeah.
You can just do whatever you want to do as long as the thirds and sevenths are very strongly highlighted. So if you go through chord changes and really get that sound of the third and seventh in your ear over whatever tunes you're playing on, and that's really resonating in your ear, and you trust your ear, you have to trust yourself to do this. You know, if you trust yourself, then what happens is you can play some of these patterns and different things and trust your ear to resolve them where they go. And so I found that with respect to my own playing, if I'm learning new patterns in particular, I do it both ways. I'll take some of the new patterns that I learn, I'll figure out specifically where they fit. I'll say they fit best here. All right, let me try to play it here and see what it sounds like. And then I take other patterns, and on purpose, I don't do that to them. Now, what will happen is my ear is developed to the point where my ear will probably put that right where it's supposed to go, without me spending a bunch of time practicing playing it in that situation.
Yeah, just fitting it in. So how I mean, your technique is like ridiculous. So just out of curiosity, like how long does it take you to get a pattern to the point where you don't really have to think much? You can just watch your hands do the work, you know, like. Because I mean, there's only like I've seen the diminished thing that you have, the diminished lesson that you had, and you had those 4 different ways of
6 ways, yeah.
6 ways of playing the pattern, and I mean, I really only have one diminished thing that I kind of do, but I think that that's kind of the next step for me is to get more freedom, is to get more patterns under my fingers and to I guess just so I can start practicing, you know, resolving patterns. I don't feel like I have a lot of them yet.
Okay, all right. Well,
so
let's do that then. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
And some locations where you can find some great patterns. There's a book. I used to use this book as a warm up book. And you might already know about the book. You might have the book. Oliver Nelson's Patterns for Improvisation.
Yeah, I think I do have that.
I used to use that book as a warm up. So it would take me about 30 minutes to play the book cover to cover, and I just did it, you know, like that. Every time I started playing, you know, practicing, that was what I did.
Yeah.
And
you just play the whole book though.
Yeah, I just played the whole book. I was just like, okay, the whole book. It might have been more like 40 minutes or something like that, but it was, you know, obviously the first few times I played it, I didn't play it in 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. You know, it took me a while to get through it, but then, you know, it was like once I figured out what was going on, then, you know, I would use it as a warm-up. And what I found is, even without, because I never took the patterns in that book and tried to put them in certain places, but I found that in my playing, I would find myself playing some of those patterns.
Yeah.
Because I was hearing them. You know, I was hearing the patterns, and my fingers knew where to go to access that sound, so it just came out of my horn.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. So that's great. There's a ton of pattern books. Obviously, this one right here.
That one actually, I've seen people use that and heard a lot about it. But
now, that book, that represents every mathematical possibility in note combinations.
Yeah.
So that would, if you're trying to find some patterns, that might be a good place to look for them. That's a great book. Are you into like the triad pairs thing?
Yeah, I spent some time with that, but it's, you know, another thing is I don't know how you feel about this, but you probably practice something for a while and then put it away and don't.
Oh yeah, and then come back to it because you get bored. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely spent, you know, a while doing that, and then I just kind of stopped doing it. So I can like dabble a little bit, and but.
Now, what with the triad pairs? Because I mean, you say you do about one diminished thing. I mean, there's a good diminished thing in that, you know, in that whole triad pair thing. If you took two major triads, a tritone part.
Yeah.
That gives you diminished.
Yeah. So like, I just with the triads, I guess I just worked on the 3 or the 4 main relationships, like 1 to tritone, 1 to 2, 1 to 1 to flat 7, which is I guess the same as 1 to 2, but and 1 to major 7.
And that's 2 triads, a tritone part.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Patterns. I'm just gonna go through a bunch of diminished patterns. Stuff
Okay.
off the top of my head. I'm just gonna go through a bunch of patterns. Is it on? Yeah. Right. And just separate it by minor thirds. Transpose it down by minor thirds. Okay. All right. That one's and I could change that one by 1 note. That gives me something else. Okay, that's one. Let's see here. Here's another one. I find myself playing this a lot, especially lately. Actually, I just played it in whole steps, but a lot of times I'll play it in minor thirds. Yeah. And actually, that's hip too. And you could do that in whole steps, half steps.
Is there a range that you go up to when you're doing a pattern like that? Because like obviously in altissimo it's probably going to not be as easy.
Well, yeah, right. I think there is a functional. Actually, especially for speed, there's probably a functional range.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't tell you don't practice those patterns. Past a certain point either, though.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just need to make more time for that aspect. Like that's the most frustrating part of practicing. I think is because you don't. It's not necessarily. It's like labor. It's almost what it feels like. But you have to do it, otherwise you're not gonna.
Yeah, it's the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And you're practicing. You're playing all kind of stuff that's way more challenging than anything that you'll ever actually play. So that when you're actually on the gig, it's easy.
Yeah.
Right? That's the whole thing. Let's see here. Let me think of a couple more here. This thing here. This isn't diminished. This is like a whole tone thing. But it's kind of based on triad pairs, and then so you end up with a half step in between to kind of to join them. So it's.
Is that based off the augmented triad then?
Yeah, two augmented hot triad.